What's up, guys? Welcome to the line change. And now, this next video is going to be a doozy. As you guys can tell from the title of this video, we're going to get right into Jim Rutherford's comments when it comes to Quinn Hughes. And, basically admitting that, losing Quinn Hughes would be the absolute worst possible thing or worst possible scenario for the Vancouver Canucks, and it would really be a crushing blow to the organization if they were to lose Quinn Hughes in 2 years once he becomes a unrestricted free agent. He talked about how important Quinn Hughes is to this team and that they are hell-bent on doing whatever it takes to make sure Quinn Hughes remains a Vancouver Canuck. He brought up how, the salary cap is going up. And this is actually a good thing for the Canucks. It helps them when, 2 years from now, the cap will have gone up even more than it is this upcoming season. So it allows them to essentially offer Quinn Hughes a contract that he has earned and that he is worthy of. So they can basically, not necessarily give him a blank check, but they can get probably pretty close to that. They can, I'm going to go out on a limb and even say, I'm not going to say that Quinn is going to sign this contract, but the contract that the Canucks end up offering Quinn Hughes, because right now, Elias Pettersson is the highest paid Canuck right now. I think when they make that offer to Quinn Hughes will be the highest paid Vancouver Canuck. I think he's going to get more than 11.6. I think you go like maybe 14 for Quinn Hughes years. I haven't really figured that out yet, but you got to at least start with a number at least either close to PDs or above PDs when it comes to what you're going to offer Quinn Hughes. That's just my personal opinion, my personal take on, as a potential number. Let me know in the comment section down below what number you guys think that they should offer Quinn Hughes come 2 years from now. But we're going to go over another article. I'm going to take bits and pieces from it just for the quotes from Rutherford himself. And this article, which, again, as always, I will leave a link to in the description down below. This article in particular is titled Jim Rutherford Hints at Canucks Trading for Jack and Luke Hughes to Help Keep Quinn in Vancouver. And this article is from our friend David Quadrilli of Canucks Army and Canucks Conversation. But before we dive into this article, I'm going to quickly hit my sponsor read, and then we'll dive right into the article right afterwards. Are you looking for an energy drink that is jitter-free, crash-free, no sugars, no artificial colors or dyes, and no calories? Then Uppbeat Energy is for you. With over 15 plus unique custom-made flavors, go ahead and get a starter sampler pack, which includes 3 different flavors. Use code TheLineChange to get 10% off your next purchase. Uppbeat Energy, your taste buds' favorite energy drink. All right, let's dive right into this article. And it starts off by saying it's a question that many Vancouver Canucks fans have started to wonder about. Will Quinn Hughes sign long-term when he's eligible for an extension next offseason? Remember, he is eligible next offseason, but he isn't a UFA until the season after. Just so that's clear. Jim Rutherford has a pretty outside-the-box idea on how to pull that off. When answering a question about keeping the eldest Hughes brother in Vancouver long-term, the Canucks' president of hockey operations said, one thing that we will be sure of is that we will have enough cap space to offer him the kind of contract that he deserves. That's the one thing that we can prepare for. It may not boil down to money with him. He said before he wants to play with his brothers, and that would be partly out of our control, in our control, if we brought his brothers here. So there's many moving parts here. I agree 100%. This franchise cannot afford to lose a guy like Quinn Hughes, and we will do everything we can to keep him here. But at the end of the day, it'll be his decision. When asked to follow up if he'd seriously considered trading for the Hughes brothers, Rutherford said, well, we got to be careful with tampering here, so we'll just leave it at that. I probably crossed the line anyways. And then it goes on to show a clip, which you guys can find on the Canucks Army Twitter. Hughes will become eligible to sign a contract extension in July 2026 when he enters the final year of his current contract in Vancouver. When asked about his future on Friday, Hughes took the focus off of himself and said that everyone just wants to be part of a winning team. And this is a quote from Quinn Hughes himself. I think that everyone that's here just wants to be a part of a winning team. I don't think anyone's too concerned about making me happy, just about being a successful organization. And I think that's the main goal for everyone here. I definitely feel like we can do that. Jack Hughes is heading into year 4 of an 8-year deal with the Devils that sees him paid $8 million per season, while Luke is in need of a contract this summer. After coming off of his entry-level contract, he is not offer sheet eligible. So let's keep that in mind. Luke Hughes is not offer sheet eligible. So that is the article, but let's get into the nitty-gritty and what a lot of people are talking about right now. Matter of fact, I did have a disagreement with Rev Trev of Calgary Canucks on whether or not this is tampering or not. Hey, in my personal opinion, I don't think it is, but that's just, how I view it. And I'm going to explain why I think it's not. For starters, that quote that Rutherford said, he literally said, let me just quickly find it. He essentially said, if we brought his brothers here. That is the exact quote that he used. If we brought his brothers here. Now, when it comes to tampering, you have to tampering is basically, for those that don't know, is you are trying to persuade or negotiate with someone who is under contract with another team. And I use the word persuade for a reason here. In this quote, Jim Rutherford is not trying to persuade or negotiate with Jack or Luke. This quote, he is not, referring, exclusively talking to Jack or Luke. He's just saying, if we brought his brothers here. That is all he's saying. Yes, some will still consider that tampering, but it's not traditional tampering. And that comes from Blake Price of Sekeres and Price. I was watching the show and he kind of explained that this is not, traditional tampering. It's kind of like borderline. He's basically, he's got his foot on the line. And if he, says something wrong or, continues, he could cross that line. Some would say he did cross the line. Now, before I get flack or anything like that, do I agree with what he said? Do I think he should have said it? No, he probably shouldn't have said it. But much like Alvin, it makes a pretty good soundbite. That's, I would say Rutherford's version of a pipe bomb right there. CM Punk, pipe bomb. That's what I would classify that as. And hey, Quinn Hughes has been quoted in the past as having said he wants to play with his brothers. And there's no harm in that. If I had, 2 brothers who were really darn good hockey players, I'd want to play with them too. So I don't fault Quinn at all for that. But the whole notion of this is tampering, if Rutherford ends up getting fined, big whoop, okay, cool. But another reason why I think this is, not necessarily tampering, and actually I'm going to bring up JT Miller and his whole scenario. Also, if you have followed my channel from the near beginning, one of my first videos was talking about whether or not the New York Rangers tampered when it came to the JT Miller trade, because everyone knows, at least the first little bit, supposedly JT's wife, Natalie, had Vinny Trocheck's wife, Hillary, I think her name is, came to Vancouver, surprised Natalie, and that's when they two wives started talking about, hey, we should bring JT, you and JT should come back to New York, da 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 da. And then in the video that we put, I'll leave a link to it up here. Apparently Chris Drury went to Vincent Trocheck himself and asked him, hey, do you think JT would want to come here? And then Trocheck approached JT and asked him. That is tampering right there. Now, we don't know exactly the conversation between JT and Trocheck, but if Drury is going to Trocheck, who's a well-known friend and close friend of JT Miller, and then Trocheck is going to Miller, that is tampering. He's trying to persuade JT to come to New York. And they're talking in person, like one-on-one. This is Rutherford just simply answering a question and using, Quinn saying him wanting to play with his brothers, and basically them saying, we'd like them to be here too. We would want them to be here if it makes him happy. So that is why I'm using those two comparisons, because the whole JT thing, that was tampering, like without question, because again, Trocheck approaches Miller to come to New York in person and is essentially trying to, persuade him to do so. And then he ends up doing it. And then Rangers didn't get a fine. They did, the NHL supposedly investigated, from what I've heard, but they didn't receive a fine for that. So that's why I don't think Rutherford's going to get a fine for this. Because if the Rangers don't get anything, or Chris Drury doesn't get anything, why would you do it for this? When that was more so tampering than this situation. People are going to probably disagree with this take, but it's a fact. It was reported that, Rangers tampered with when it came to the JT Miller trade. They didn't get punished. So I don't think Rutherford should get punished. And some people are saying maybe he said it as like a joke. Some people are using that. Also, there's an article, which actually I'm going to bring up right now, because I think I still have it. Okay. Let me quickly check. Yeah, I do still have it. May as well break this down as well. This is from Vancouver is Awesome. So it's not from Canucks Army, but they talk about the quote, and they discuss beyond the tampering. They also say Rutherford did Hughes a disservice with comment about his brothers. It says here the Vancouver Canucks' president of hockey ops may have committed some light tampering while also throwing his captain under the bus. So I'll leave a link to this article in the description as well. The article goes on to say, did the Vancouver Canucks president of hockey ops commit some tampering on Monday? By the letter of the law, maybe, but more importantly, he likely caused some unnecessary drama for the most important player on his team. The Canucks have a lot of needs to address in the offseason, as the team must address their forward group after finishing 23rd in the NHL in goals and 31st in shots on goal. With the team's biggest need of all is a simple one. They need to keep Quinn Hughes happy. article goes on to quote some of the things that we quoted already from Rutherford, him saying this franchise cannot afford to lose a guy like Quinn Hughes. We won't go over that. Going down, talks more about, his quote about the having enough cap space. And then it goes on to say, he wants to play with his brothers. The article goes on to say that's when Rutherford went a bit too far. I don't disagree there. And then, has that quote on the exact quote that he used when it came to the brothers. And then it goes, as Mike Lego once said, you can't do that. Hughes has two brothers in the NHL, both of whom play for the New Jersey Devils, and you can't talk about wanting to acquire players under contract to another team. That's tampering. And, talks about, basically explains what tampering is. And it goes, at a base level, tampering means an executive talking to a player under contract to another team and attempting to persuade them to join their team. But if that goes beyond that type of backroom deal, as even expressing an interest in a player without talking to them or their agent directly, can be considered tampering. That brings it back to the whole Chris Drury and the Rangers thing. Yes, Drury himself didn't go talk to Miller, but he expressed an interest in JT without talking to JT directly or JT's agent. The idea is that a player who knows another team is interested in him is more likely to eschew signing with their current team and test free agency. Rutherford did admit that he probably crossed the line. Rutherford's comment was likely intended as a joke, but it's easy to see how it could be problematic. Since Luke Hughes is in need of a new contract this offseason, he could, in theory, negotiate a contract that walks him directly to free agency, knowing that the Canucks could empty their coffers to sign him in the future. That I did not know, that Luke Hughes was in need of a new contract, and now I see why people are kind of up in arms now. That part I did not know that he was negotiated. I assumed, Luke was locked up long term like Jack is, who's signed through 2030. And it also says Jack himself would likely requiring half the Canucks' roster in a trade. He's not wrong there, but the NHL has taken a hard line with tampering in recent months. Deputy Commissioner Bill Daly went out of his way back in November to reiterate to general managers the consequences for tampering, with teams facing up to $5 million in fines, forfeiture of draft picks, termination of any contract signed as a result of the tampering, and penalties paid to the offended team. Meanwhile, the individual responsible for the tampering can receive up to $1 million a $1 million fine and face suspension or expulsion from the league. Are any of these consequences likely to befall Rutherford? Perhaps not, as the respect he's garnered across 3 decades as an NHL executive would likely protect him. But he was definitely aware that he might have overstepped. Well, we've got to be careful with tampering, so we'll just leave it at that. See, that was a good thing for Rutherford to say. He didn't want to get into it because he was asked that follow-up question. When a reporter followed up on bringing the two other Hughes brothers to Vancouver, I probably crossed the line anyway. Here's the real issue, though. Even if Rutherford does get fined, there's a bigger issue. He opened a big can of worms for his captain by telling the media that Hughes wants to play with his brothers. It will undoubtedly raise questions for Hughes in the coming months. Hughes has said before that playing with his brothers would be really cool. Of course, everyone wants to play with their brothers in the NHL. That's the dream, said Hughes to the Athletics' Thomas Drance back in 2021. You asked the Canucks or the Stalls, they actually did it. But Hughes immediately followed that up by expressing his commitment to the Canucks. I like Vancouver a lot, and that's why I signed for 6 years. I'm really grateful to the Aquilini family. They've taken care of me and my family too. I like it here, so we'll see how it goes. I'm committed here long term. I love it here, and I want to win here. There's something about the team that drafts you. You want to do well for them. I feel like I owe them my best. That's what I'm going to do. That was long before Hughes was named captain of the Canucks, and the years since, Hughes has repeatedly emphasized his commitment to staying in Vancouver. While fans might have speculated about Hughes leaving in free agency in 2 years when his contract is up, there was no tangible reason to suspect that he wanted to be anywhere other than Vancouver, and then Rutherford provided one. That immediately led to headlines like Canucks GM Quinn Hughes wants to play with Devil Stars. In other words, Rutherford provided fuel for the he wants out fire. You can bet that the next time Hughes speaks to the media, he's going to be asked about Rutherford's comments, forcing him to reiterate once again that he loves Vancouver and will never leave, like he's the boyfriend of an insecure partner. At a time when Hughes has said all he wants is to get away from the game, shut off his phone, and relax, especially after a season that was so tumultuous, the drama won't let him be. Really, the responsibility is on Rutherford and Alvin to build a cup-contending team to keep Hughes in Vancouver rather than pie-in-the-sky ideas of acquiring his brothers. And it would be helpful if they avoided repeatedly putting their star players in uncomfortable positions with their comments. I agree with that completely. Looking back on this, Rutherford, yeah, all like tampering, shit all aside, he kind of put his foot in his mouth by saying that. I mean, yes, it's going to get Canuck fans all giddy about that, idea of Jack and Luke being Vancouver Canucks, but this article is not wrong. They've put Quinn Hughes now in an uncomfortable position, and it basically stokes the fire of, as it mentioned in the article, does he want to be here? Does he want out? It provides fuel for the he wants out fire. I am curious, as this article mentioned, on Hughes' first media comments, and it also actually just I just thought of, do you guys think maybe Rutherford might walk back his comments, for what he said, do some like damage control? But I want to know from you guys, once again, tampering all aside, what do you guys think about Rutherford's pipe bomb here? And just, keep in mind, Rutherford is the one who said Hughes wants to play with his brothers. He brought that up, and then he dropped that pipe bomb. So, once again, let me know in the comment section down below what you guys think. If you like this video, go ahead and hit that like button. If you're not subscribed to The Line Change and want to stay up to date on all your Vancouver Canucks content, smash that subscribe button. Find us on social media. You can find us on Twitter /X at LineChangeVan. You can find us on Instagram at The Line Change. You can also find us on Facebook. Just search The Line Change on Facebook. You can also find us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts if you prefer a audio version of this podcast. So that's going to do it for this video. Bit of a long one for this one, but it was such a juicy topic. And yeah, I'll see you guys in the next video.